Hey guys, hope you're all having a good day, night, weekend, vacation, commute, walk, whatever you're doing as you listen to this audio. Maybe you're just watching it. So I've had some interesting dreams lately. Of course, dreams are always interesting and strange. So I had this one dream where I was at Disney World with my family, but of course, as most dreams go, it looked different. The layout was much different. It was kind of more like these long, skinny, tight, streets that you see in like, old, like Italy, old world kind of a look. Of course, Epcot has these sorts of old, replicas of old European neighborhoods, but it looked more authentic. And it was almost more like a historic preservation park or something, although I felt that in the dream it was Disney. So what was weird about it though is Jimmy Carter, the president that he was president when I was born, back in the late '70s. He was the groundskeeper, and I had been hired to work with him. And my family was really excited about that I was going to be working with Jimmy Carter. And he was old. He was this current age, whatever age he is now, late '80s, early '90s. So that was something. And then at some point in the dream, I was driving along in my old, the original car I had was a 1983 Honda Accord hatchback, a silver car. It was pretty cool. We called it the Silver Bullet. And for some reason, I was kind of like a chauffeur. I was driving Donald Trump, actually. He was in the back seat, back right passenger side of my car. And I was taking him drop him off at the White House. And we were having this interesting conversation, and he was telling me that the top members of the government actually, for some reason, they attend a fake Academy Awards. And there's a reason for this, but we didn't really go into that. It all made sense, of course, in the dream. But he was telling me how the actors get up and they present the awards, but they're actually not the real actors, and they have names that are kind of like a parody of the actual actor's name. Like Brad Pitt might be like Chad Pitt, or something along those lines. And for some reason, it's needed to be, a whole fake facade, a presentation of sorts. So when I dropped Donald Trump off, of course it was the White House, but it looked different than the regular White House. It had kind of like a fountain out front with one of those driveways that kind of goes around the fountain, where you can drop people off. And right when I dropped him off, he, some, I guess, Secret Service agents walked up and they said, "Hey, we need to inspect your car for drugs." And at that time, I wasn't worried about it at all because I didn't have any drugs in my car that I knew of. And Donald Trump was like, "Oh man, he smelled something," so he started kind of looking around under my front passenger seat, and I was still not worried because I didn't have any, drugs in the car. So he says, "No, but I smell it," and he keeps looking around, almost like he's a drug dog sniffing it out, and he pulls out this like half-smoked joint. I mean, it's, and I'm kind of freaked out because I'm like, "What the heck? I didn't know that was in my car." And he kind of gets on to me about it, but then he just lets me go. It's no big deal. So that was the end of that dream. I think there were kind of two dreams in one there. They kind of blurred together. And I had this other dream a little while back, a few weeks ago actually, where I was at some kind of interior design, like conference meeting or something. Not really sure what it was, but whatever it was, we were in a building with very modern, very sleek, high-end design. Some kind of public function was going on. And then it was time to go, so I got in the elevator. And I just remember there was something significant about the elevator, but and it made sense at the time, but I just can't quite put my finger on it now. We got down to the bottom of this building, walked outside, and we started walking to what I think was our car at the parking lot. But the walk from the building to the parking lot sort of became this strange trail where there was like construction going on all around, and it looked like maybe there had been some kind of rain or something, because there was like this kind of creek that was going across like this dirt road that we were walking on. But as I got closer, it was even more of like an actual creek. So we kind of had to hop over the creek, maybe there was some rocks in the middle of the creek that kind of stepped on them. And as I walked across, this little turtle jumped in and started kind of swimming down into the clear water. So I reached down to grab the turtle by its shell with my right hand, and as I grabbed the turtle, its like head came out or no, actually I take it back, it wasn't its head, it was his like hand, I guess what is a turtle, a hand or a paw? Anyway, his hand reached back and grabbed my hand, but he had like spines on his hand, like he dug into me, and it kind of hurt, almost like a sting. And I pulled my hand away. I think that actually woke me up, that sting that I experienced. Another part of a dream that I don't remember the full dream. I just remember in the dream I was looking at myself in the mirror very closely, examining myself. And as I looked closer, I saw that I had actually started balding. I had lost a lot of my hair. My hairline was very receded, but it wasn't totally bald. I had like, speckled hair, pieces sticking out. But I was far more bald than I realized, and I just remember thinking, like, wow, that's weird. I thought I had more hair, but now that I'm investigating it closer, I have a lot less hair than I thought. And then what was also weird is that all over my forehead, I had little hairs sticking out all over the place. And I thought, well, that's weird too. I never really noticed all this forehead hair that I have. I'm sure that means something. Hair loss, forehead hair. I'm sure some dream interpreters would find that relevant in some way. So I had this other dream where I was going to go to some function. I feel like a lot of my dreams always revolve around some kind of a function, some kind of public function, some kind of meetup, affiliation group. So there's always, drinks and hors d'oeuvres, finger foods. Not really sure what that represents, but, social meetup. And oftentimes work-related. So I had to go to one of these functions, and I was leaving my house, and I was kind of lived in like an inner city type setup where there was there was roads, but there was also like kind of like public transit train tracks as well. I remember I decided to walk to this function, thinking, oh, it's not that far. I know how to get there, and along the walk there, of course, the dream kind of got off track. I remember somehow ending up in some people's house and talking to them. I don't remember any relevance to that now, but I'm sure there was something. And I remember thinking, well, that the walk got extremely long. I mean, and then I came across these public transit like train tracks, and I remember thinking, well, I can't get across that. It's really far, and the walk was getting very far, to the point where it was going to take me hours and hours to get, as well as, very tiring. I didn't have the energy to make it to this function that I was trying to get to. So I remember I called Uber. I got picked up by an Uber driver and then delivered me to this function. And the function was pretty standard, just people, talking, whatever. And then as we got done with the function, we went out to the parking lot again. The parking lot seems to be a common theme in some of these dreams lately. We went out there, and there was this guy that I guess it was like a work-related function. He was like worked at maybe one of a company we had a partnership with or something. He wasn't a direct employee with me, but he worked with some of the people, like my friends that were at this meeting. And he had like this really fancy sports car. He was like this big, kind of angry, muscular guy. Seemed maybe like 10 years older than me, late 40s. He had this like sports car, and he was really mad because this car had parked right behind him. Now they weren't touching him, and they hadn't hit his car. But I think maybe they were blocking him in, and he was just very mad, and we were all standing there. And so what he did was he was like, I guess he was really strong or something. He just like got mad and pushed that car out of the way and pushed it right into another car and like really damaged both of the cars. And what was interesting is that the car that he pushed that car into was like this Toyota Camry, kind of like an older Toyota Camry, and banged it up pretty bad. Like probably, I mean, it was an older car, so it was probably totaled, but definitely very damaged. And this was like a single mother. It was her car that she needed, and she didn't have any money to replace it. And I remember feeling pretty kind of upset, and kind of sad that this single mom had, lost her car damaged because this guy was just like a total jerk. And it was obvious that he didn't really care at all about this woman, or it was just all about him and his sports car, and he had places to be. He didn't have time for these things holding him back. And then my friends, I remember telling me like, "Oh yeah, that guy, he's a real jerk. You really don't want to be able. That guy's just a problem, you know." So that dream was, I kind of woke up with a weird feeling about that guy and that situation, feeling bad for that single mom. So then last night I had a series of strange dreams. Now I have been taking melatonin before bed, which definitely enhances these dreams, makes them very vivid and interesting. I like things that are vivid and interesting always. I feel like I say the word interesting too much, but maybe I'll try to come up with I'll look through a thesaurus and try to find new words for the word, synonyms for interesting. Intriguing. So I was at this bakery, and I was there to buy donuts, and I had placed an order already, and they were donut holes, and I was getting 12 donut holes. And when I went to go check out, the guy brings out my donut holes, and he tells me that's going to be like $28 or something. And I was about to just go ahead and pay for them, but then I did the math, and I thought, well, I was like, how much do these things cost? Because that seemed kind of expensive for 12 donut holes, and they cost $1.10 a piece, and there was 12 of them. So I said, well, I quickly did the math in my head, and I was like, well, that should be $13.20 plus tax, not like $28 or whatever. And he was like really confused. He's like, what? And I kind of kept arguing, and I was like, I'm not going to pay $28. It should be $13.20 plus tax. $1.10 times 12, $13.20. Now it's interesting in the dream that I was able to do this math so quickly, and when I woke up, I realized that my math was actually correct. So that's kind of cool. It's not a real hard math problem. But so I went back to talk to the manager, and they pulled out a calculator, and they were showing me, and I was like, well, let me see the calculator. I'll show you. $1.10 times 1.10 times 12 equals 13.20, and then of course, like I said, you got to add sales tax. But when I did it on the calculator, it came up to like $45, and I was like, what? And I was really confused because I'm like, what? Why would that come up to? What is wrong? So I hit the clear button. I thought, well, maybe there was something going on. So I cleared it out, did it again, came up to like $38. I'm just like, why am I getting these numbers that are incorrect? Like something is not correct here. And then the manager was kind of looking at me like, dude, what's wrong with you? The calculator isn't wrong. And then of course, I kind of got suspicious. I said, wait a minute, am I on Punk'd? That MTV show where basically they play pranks on people. Or Candid Camera was of course another show. But I was like, am I on Punk'd? Like, are you guys punking me? And that's when they all started laughing, and like the camera crew came out, and they're like, we're punking you. But then I kind of felt happy that I caught onto it before they, drove me crazy and announced to me that I had been punked. And then also last night I had this other dream. It was like me and my mother and my son were going to this ice cream shop in this shopping strip that was right near where I grew up. And that shopping strip's kind of abandoned now, but it used to be really happening. There used to be a lot of businesses going on there, very thriving. A big supermarket was there. And we were going to visit this ice cream shop. And my dad was pulling up in a separate car for some reason. And I remember he parked in this very strange way, and my mom got really kind of like mad and was yelling at him, like, why are you parking like that? Just badgering him. And, the only other thing I remember about that dream is that I was holding my son, I walked him up to the ice cream shop, and they had like this clown that comes out to like entertain you and your kids while you, eat ice cream. But the clown was Steve Martin, the famous comedian. And he, kind of performed his little clown dance, and he, interacted with my son, said he was cute or whatever. My son liked him a lot. And I just remember thinking, like, well, that's very impressive, that this guy who's like this world famous, celebrity, it takes his time out of his day to work at this small ice cream shop to entertain people in this small town. I'm trying to figure out what that means, or why Steve Martin just randomly popped up in my dream. I mean, I'm a fan, I guess. Not like a huge fan. I'm not opposed to him. He's a very talented musician. So, I have been watching Twin Peaks lately, and that's my kind of show. I'd never watched it before. It's almost 30 years old now. And that show has all the elements of things that I would be interested in. I just got halfway done through the first season, and they're getting into the dream stuff, the surreal stuff, where it connects with quote unquote real life that we're experiencing now as you listen to this. So I might reference that again as I go on. I feel in some way that show is connecting me to my dream state more. I feel like I never have watched it for a reason. I'm glad I haven't watched it till now that I'm older and I can understand those topics better. If I'd seen it when it came out in the, late 80s, early 90s, I would have been way too young to even grasp it. I probably would have thought it was too weird, or might have gotten scared of some of the stuff. But for any of our listeners who haven't seen Twin Peaks, go ahead and check it out. They're going to do a remake next year, and I'm not sure if that's going to be, or I don't know if it's a continuation or a remake, but I'm hoping it's not terrible. But either way, this show is really something. All right, guys. Have a good day, night, weekend, vacation.